Marcia Reynolds is a rockstar of coaching. She has coached leaders in 47 countries. Coaches 50s has listed her as one of the top leadership coaches, and Global Gurus listed Marcia as one of the top 10 coaches in the world. And by the way, she's the number one woman in the list for over 5 years. Marcia served as the fifth global president of the International Coaching Federation, and she's included in their circle of distinction for her contributions in the coaching community. She's the author of 5 books, including the international bestseller Coach the Person, Not the Problem, and Breakthrough Coaching. I'm so honored to have Marcia in this podcast. So let's get started. Hello, Marcia. Welcome to the Business of Trust podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm so honored that you said yes to being a guest. And well, I would like to start with the very beginning of your coaching career. When I was
Mhm.
looking at your website, I read the story on how a friend sent you this article of this new thing called coaching, and it was 1995. Now, I was born in 1994, so I do marketing.
Not even
I do
age me.
marketing for coaching. So to
Yeah.
think that there was a moment where there was like an emerging career,
hmm
and you lived through it. You were right at that moment. So can you tell us a
hmm
little bit about how you got into this line of business?
Honestly, I didn't know at that moment that it was going to be the career. It was the last day of my last job, so I had already resigned. I had intentions of starting my own business. I had been teaching leadership for 16 years in companies. So I wanted to continue that and help people learn and grow. But because I had been teaching, and I even, in my effort to make my teaching, my training programs really effective, I even got a second master's degree in adult learning, and I was constantly researching how do I make people learn and grow, really change their behavior. People love my classes; they give me happy faces. And then they go out, and as soon as it feels awkward when they try new behavior, they go back to doing it the old way and they rationalize they don't have time, this doesn't work, whatever. When I was leaving, I thought, okay, I'm still going to continue to teach because that's what I do. But then this thing called coaching came up, and the way they described it, I said, this is a different way of people learning and growing, which it piqued my interest because I've always been a researcher, like how does this work? Well, when I called just to talk to someone about this, there was really only a couple coaching schools at the time. And the person in the article was Thomas Leonard, who started Coach U and the International Coach Federation. And they said, well, actually, Thomas is going around and doing coaching demos, so you're invited to see one. And as soon as I watched a coaching demo, I said, something's different here that impacts people in a different way, that changes their mind, and they commit more to the behavioral change. So I signed up right away. I thought, okay, so this could be something else that I do, not recognizing it would become the thing that I do, and that I happened to get into it right as it was coming out into the world and was able to, get in the foundation of the International Coach Federation and build this thing. Was just, they say that, luck comes up when you're doing all the work and it appears. Well, it came at the right time that I was able to be significant in the field. I love to research, I love to write, and help all coaches do coaching better. And as I kept researching more, and at the same time, emotional intelligence came into our awareness, and I was learning that and teaching that. It's what inspired me to get my doctorate, because I said, I got to learn more about what happens in the brain that's different from just teaching. And neuroscience is such a new field. So there's always, even now, new research. So it's so fascinating to me, and I'm passionate about it because of the impact it makes. So I just am so grateful that that article landed in my computer on that last day of my last job.
It was somehow meant to be. And
Mhm.
if we fast forward like
Mhm.
30 years since 1995, you have worked
Mhm.
with an impressive like list of clients. Like I used to look at some of
Mhm.
the names in your website, like
Yeah.
Ernst and Young, Merck's, American
Mhm.
Express, and I can help but wonder, how does one enter like what I call the major leagues of
Yeah.
coaching?
Yeah. My first few clients actually, were corporations, but were people I knew. Like
Hmm.
my first big client was Medtronic Semiconductor, but the VP of HR actually hired me to Microchip Technology. And then when they had a restructuring, he left and went to Medtronic. So he knew me, and had trusted to hire me back then. So I looked at, you look at who you know and you reach out. And it's about the courage to say, I'm doing this thing, even if it's not perfect. But actually, I wasn't even selling him coaching, but he was the one that said, I think this coaching thing's kind of interesting and maybe we should teach it to our leaders. So we were kind of exploring it together. But beyond that, a lot of those companies on your list actually came from my coaching community. Ernst and Young came from people who internal coaches, that were working for Ernst and Young and said, "Oh, we really want you to come work with us," because they have a lot of these companies have a huge pool of internal coaches, and so I've worked with the coaches for Google, for Microsoft, for Ernst and Young, for the military. So either they knew me because I taught a class, work with them, maybe even coach them. And so it's people often ask, well, why should I join the International Coach Federation or EMCC? What do they do for me? And it's like it's not about what they do for you, it's the community. You've got to step into leadership, let people know you, get to know your community, work together on projects. And, we're all in this together. And so that whole networking thing with your coaching community is critical. So even if it's just local, like people here in Phoenix, Arizona, they get to know each other and they help each other find business. So I think that we don't do this on our own. It's very difficult.
It's a beautiful way of saying that. I completely subscribe to that, and that's
Hmm.
honestly the reason why I started this podcast, because I think there's so much noise out there, and the
Hmm.
human component of building authentic relationships
Yeah.
is what works. And I love that you just put that into evidence.
I want to say just one more thing about that. People hire people they know. And even if they've only seen me online teaching, then they think they know me. So you've got to get out there. You've got to put your face out there. You've got to share things, and join your community. Because then they feel safe with you. They know you.
In the spirit of feeling safe and that they know you, I mean, this is called the business of trust. And I want to take a
Hmm.
quote from your book, from the
Hmm.
Breakthrough Coaching book that we can see in the back there. Um, it reads, sincere respect is the strongest stimulus of positive feeling when interacting. When it
Hmm.
comes to creating trust and safety, feeling
Hmm.
respected beats out the other factors, including compassion. And I was
Hmm.
so surprised when I read this. Can you perhaps tell us what does respect means in this context,
Yeah.
and why is it so important?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, when I first read the research that supports that, I was surprised too. I thought, oh, that feel the person cares about me. But, respect says, I acknowledge you as a significant human being. And what we're seeking, what our soul is seeking, is to be seen and heard and valued for what we contribute. Yes, I want you to care about me, but if you respect who I am and what I do, then I feel not just that I belong, but that I should be here. you
Mm.
know, and that's such a great gift we give people. And that it's often overlooked by leaders, or even, teachers, that I know this and I'm giving it to you, but that I'm not necessarily looking at you at respecting at what you know. So it's such an important human element, that either creates connection or disconnects. That feeling of respect, not just to say, I honor you, I respect your work, but to really, to feel respect for the person in front of you is so critical.
And you can't fake it, right? Like it's a very
Mhm.
human part. And I mean,
Yeah.
I subscribe to American Buddhism. There is the Namaste concept of like I see the divinity in you, and
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that's the only way to
exactly.
access that.
Words have no energy, they're just words. But emotions actually put out measurable energy. I mean, this is how I know it's okay to be with you or not. So my brain has to know this is safe. That's my brain's primary function, is to know, to keep me safe, to protect me. So I'm energetically reading, is this safe? And so the emotions you put out of respect, of caring, of that I'm generally interested. These are emotions that my brain must read. So you can't just say it to me, because again, there's no measurable energy from a word. There is from an emotion. And my radar can tell if you're genuine or not, if you really mean it. So it's like a subconscious thing that I'm reading this in order for me to feel to be safe.
I'm just thinking of how this philosophy that you practice and embody
Hmm.
comes through even in indirect conversations. Like when I
Hmm.
heard your interview with Damien, our common friend Damien Goldberg,
Yeah.
he interviewed you for his podcast that we produce, the Lead with a Coaching Mindset,
Hmm.
and when I heard you speak there, I could just something about the way you said it and like what you said, the importance of presence. I just felt immediately a sense of like I could trust this person.
Yeah. But that's the
It's a,
critical piece,
uh,
right? Right. I have to come into any conversation, whether it's coaching or whatever, with that, oh, I'm happy to be with you. That's the energy I have to bring. And whether I have to sit down and ground myself and create that, or just start making that just who I am, that then opens the door to whatever you can explore in a conversation.
Mhm,
That's essential. That's the essential skill.
mhm.
So it's not just this thing that you kind of think about, but it's the essential skill of having effective conversations, is bringing in that I'm happy to be with you energy.
In the relationship of coachee, you
Hmm.
advocate for the practice of unselfing, right? Of
Hmm.
detaching your ego from the picture. And you're gonna laugh, but like I'm single, and when I'm dating someone that I'm very interested in, I have this thing in my head that says like no agendas, no agendas. Because when I put an agenda, I'll
Hmm.
inevitably put a mask of the person that I want this person
Yeah.
to think I am, to them to like me.
Oh, right,
So I have to
right.
repeat. And but in the
Yeah.
context of
Hmm.
professionals
Yes.
setting,
Hmm.
inevitably we're going to be in a moment where we're going to meet someone who we know is going to be very important for our career,
Yeah.
and there's this like agenda bug trying to have us do
I
something,
want them to know how
but
great I am. Yeah.
yes, but on the other hand, what truly builds that relationship is
Yeah.
showing up in an unself way. How does
Yeah.
one reconcile one with the other? Are they at odds or not?
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point you make, that we call it posturing. That if whenever I'm in a new environment, whether it's a team or on a date, or an interview or first day on the job, it comes back to the safety that I must put out. These people must know who I am and what I can do. And you're absolutely right. It's the worst thing, because I'm single, but I quit dating because it's like that's all they do is sit there and tell me about their stories and who they are, and it's so boring, you know. Yeah. Instead of coming with, let's just be here together with each other, But to understand, even with coaches, it's like a little bit of I have to demonstrate I'm a good coach first. instead of just being there with them. And yet, again, people pick up, who we are and what we can do without saying. So like even in my last job, it was a very significant job, and it was to run the training department, but they were facing big change and they had layoffs. I was hired the day of a layoff, but they're going to restructure the entire organization and needed to change the culture. And they hired me, and I went to my boss. I said, why did you pick me? I knew this other woman that was vying for the position had far more
Mm-hmm.
experience doing that than I did. And he said, we have a lot of changes to make. We need someone who's going to dig in and do this and do exactly what it takes and not give up, and will give everything to this. And he said, I know from all that you've accomplished and all that you do, and that you keep, taking on different challenges, you're going to have exactly that determination, that dogged persistence, the courage to step in and do that. I know that, and that's why I hired you. It wasn't based on my experience. It was based on what he thought was needed by my personality. I never told him that. He just got it from the way that I am and what I've done. And so we're reading people all the time. Again, it's our protective mechanism. We have to read the room, read people. And so honestly, it's the energy behind our words that's so critical. And people see that. They'll give you opportunities. And almost in all of my jobs, it was more about trusting what I personally brought, not necessarily the skills. Every company I ever joined, I had no idea what they were doing, what they made. But that's not why they were hiring me. I went from healthcare to computer hardware to semiconductor and knew nothing. But I had the idea like, well, I'll figure it out, you know? And they trusted that okay, she's going to come in and figure it out. And so, I think mostly it was that courage and determination that they picked up, and that's the essential elements that opens up opportunities.
Now, Marcia, after this trajectory of 30 years in coaching for
Hmm.
you, is there something that you wish you'd have learned earlier on about having a successful firm?
I was a bit general starting off, like I was holding on to what I had done in the past, all the leadership training and even teaching some things that I didn't really like to teach, can you teach delegation? Can you teach, conflict resolution or whatever it was? But I kept finding that, but this, I used to do that. It's not a challenge anymore. And when I finally made the decision that no, I'm a coach's coach. I like working with coaches or leaders that want to coach, that I want to focus what I do. As soon as I focused, the business took off, and it wasn't a struggle at all anymore.
For some people, the feeling of focusing can
Mhm.
feel like letting go of a lot of opportunities. And they
Mhm.
feel that, well, if I focus on these things, what about all of these other things
Yeah, well,
that
there's
I
always going to be
really...
a lot of other things, you know. But the thing is,
Yeah.
then you're dissipating your energy. Um, that it's really better that people get to know you. I mean, they don't know you of what you do. For years, when I was teaching emotional intelligence, people knew me as the brain lady. Well, they know I still have that expertise, but they don't call me that anymore. I think they see me as, a coach's coach, and that I teach coaching. But, it's like you're not letting opportunities go. You're opening a wider door for the one thing that you most love to do,
Mhm.
and so if you stay with that, then people get to know you for that, get to trust you for that. It's much better than, well, you do a lot of things and there's no real identifier in that. And even on an individual basis, every time I worked on a proposal or worked on something really hard and then didn't get the business. As soon as I'm like, okay, I wasn't supposed to do that, and really just let it go, boom, something else came in. So it's almost like you have to create the space in order to invite it in. So there is an energy component to identifying who you are and putting that out in the world, and knowing that what's going to come back is the best clients. If they didn't want to work with you, they weren't your best clients anyway.
As I said. And Marcia, you're clearly someone who is very passionate about what they do. And now in 2025, in the world of like supercomputers, general intelligence, AI, all of this, is there something that excites you that you're very excited at right now, the way it excited you back in 1995 with coaching?
Yeah. Actually, what excites me the most is artificial intelligence in the face of what we can do so we don't have to count on that. I am not one that thinks that my avatar can coach you when I'm not there. I do not believe that, and I will never do that. So what it is driven is that I've always said it's the presence that we bring that makes the difference. But everywhere I go, and particularly in parts of the world where academic excellence is the most important thing. Really big in Asia. It was big in my family with my cultural background. You have to get A's and you have to do it right. And so there was like, I need the formulas, I need the skills, and not a real focus on presence. But that's not going to do it. That's going to get old, and it doesn't really work because you're not working within the context of the client, and they don't necessarily feel safe with you. So what's happened now is that, well, simply AI will be able to replicate just the skills, but it not in my lifetime will it be able to replicate that human interaction to where we really connect and things, just the magic happens in the space between. And that now it's a necessity for coaches to have that now they'll listen to me. And they're eager, and I'm finding it in companies as well, that the concept, they keep asking me for leadership presence, but understanding that presence is about energy. How do I get people to trust me? How can I engage them with the energy I put out, not just formulaic words I say, and so what AI has done is the counter of made the presence even more important. Yay. That all of that I had been working on and writing about, and my next version of Coach the Person, Not the Problem is coming out in March. I really, like the first chapter, I totally threw out the old one and made the first chapter all about this, that this is the way our profession's going to survive, and if you don't do that, you will be replicated. Yeah, and it won't exist. And so putting more focus on that energetic connection that we make with our emotions, and maintaining that throughout a conversation is going to be the critical piece. So I'm happy about that and passionate about that, and finding more and more people wanting that.
So beautiful because there is a deeply human component of when it comes. I always say business relationships are still human relationships, and I mean
Yes.
and we all long for that sense of emotional safety to be
Yeah.
ourselves wherever. And I can't think of AI being able to co-regulate me, especially
Yeah.
the way I feel with another
Right.
person. They don't have
Right.
the same nervous system. But
Yeah.
so
Well, it's still
Marcia.
artificial. We forget that A stands for artificial.
Mm.
So,
Now, Marcia, if somebody wants to learn more about your work and the
mhm.
way you help coaches, where would you like to send them?
Yeah. Well, recognizing not all countries have access to LinkedIn, a lot of people find me on LinkedIn, but my website is out. Well, you can find it two ways, but co-visioning, one word, covisioning.com. You can also find it at outsmartyourbrain.com. It cross talks. All my programs are described in there. All my books are described in there. And with the navigation on top, it should be fairly easy to find things. There's lots of free resources, assessments, tip sheets, and things that are available. And there's a link that says resources, so just even going there and downloading things, I like to share.
Thank you, Marcia. And thank you so much for sharing so much today. You were incredibly generous, and I
Thank
really love
you.
this conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, I do too. Thank you so much for asking me.
Hey, I hope you like my conversation with Marcia. If you're interested in learning how you can apply relationship-based marketing techniques in your business, go ahead and check out my work at Mundes Media. We embody these principles of relationship-based marketing as a way to growing a successful and enjoyable business. There is so much noise out there around this ad and like this automated funnel, but truly what Marcia just explained today is how relationships and the people who know you and the ability to trust you and feel safe with you is what really matters. What we try to do at Mundus is to have a pipeline that allows you to create those relationships with people, to have a system that allows you to meet new people and be in front of them in such a way that it builds trust and reputation. So check out our work at mundesmedia.com, and I hope you subscribe in whatever platform you're listening from, because there's more of these conversations coming along. Bye for now.